Hi, welcome back. More Broken Arrow. It's been a couple of days since my last one. Sorry for a little bit of a delay. But we've only got these last two ones to do before the game comes out. We're so close now. Let's get them done. I do want to try and fit in a few other things before release too, if I can, but we'll see how we go. Um, we've got Stryker and Marine is the deck I'm playing for this one. So I got my fill of SOF in the last matches that I reviewed. Well, maybe not my fill, but I knew that this was my last chance to play these last few matches, and I knew I hadn't really done much Striker yet. So I'd had some success with SOF. I felt better with them, so it was time to try Striker again before I lost access for, until now, basically, until the release of the game. So let me unpause, as we've got Yeet Machine, Medicus, LDE, and Vulcan on my team. And then we have I Can't See, Oceans, Evil Commie, Chancellor David, and Joining Player on the other team. I did a little talk with LDE recently, and Yeet, and nice guy. LDE invited me to talk on his channel about stuff, and that was fun. Thanks, LDE, for inviting me to that. It was good. LDE is a big airborne player. I know that, and you'll see that in this match. On Oil Refinery, map I quite like, though again, it's a split in half version from if you played in the November beta. And yeah, using SOF here, which not the most familiar with. Sorry, not SOF, Striker. Not from the most familiar with, but that's the point. I've been thinking a lot about this game. A lot about this game. A lot of it with you all in reviewing these matches, but also a lot after the reviews, a lot reading your comments. One thing about playing all these matches in a vacuum, as I've said time and time again, is, I talk about mistakes and I can't really fix them for the next video because we're still watching videos from the past, or matches from the past. And I know that's been frustrating, especially for some people, to be like, oh, keeps doing the same thing. Maybe people don't realize they're all pre-recorded or whatever. Doesn't matter. But it also has been useful for me because having people drill in, I think, the same things over and over again, because I kept making the same mistakes in these matches, of course, I think it's probably been helpful in, mentally really, hammering it into me to have that, conditioned feeling of, I never want to be criticized for that ever again. I'm never going to make that mistake again. And of course I will. Of course I will, because it's all about, you can remember things, but it's different, or it's different to know something to remember it in the heat of battle, I can know all the answers on a test if I have infinite time, but when we're actually playing the game, it's having these things actually pop off in my brain when they need to pop off and not 5 seconds later or a minute later that matters. We're rolling out with a column of Strikers here. We've got some Marine Lav Ls with 2,500 kilos of supplies in each. Nice little ambulances, delivery trucks. And then we've got, looks like 4 Strikers with a little smattering of troops in them. I think I brought a recon one too, maybe a bit later on. Opening the air battle here. Only got some AA Stinger troopers in those Strikers, nothing else yet. Just using the Strikers themselves. Vipers, doing Viper things. Thank you, Vipers, winning the air battle, it seemed. There's my recon Striker on the right there. And all these Strikers are done up to the 9s. They all have the trophy systems and advanced armor. They have... I'm not sure if they all have the Javelin grenade launcher combo, or if some of them have Javelin autocannon, but either way. They should all have Javelins. And those trooper squads there, Striker is an interesting spec because you have fairly large infantry squads at 9. But they're more infantry weapon focused, and then you also have the special weapons. So Javelin troopers, the standard trooper, have a couple of AT-4s, a couple of Javelins, and then, machine guns and rifles. AA troopers, as you see there in my Strikers, they're very similar, but instead of having the Javelins or AT-4s, they have, an AA launcher. So it's kind of like half, not even half, it's kind of like, it's like half an AA unit, but it's also just half an infantry squad. And that's good and bad. They don't have 2 launchers, so they're not going to be that good as a killer of enemy helicopters, more of a deterrent. They haven't got the double launcher power that you might get in an airborne squad of 2 Stingers. But it's nice, though, because you get to have just a regular infantry squad as well. So these guys can take an infantry fight, right? They are just a rifle squad, they just also happen to have a Stinger. Similar to World in Conflict with the AA squad there, I think. Been a while since I played, don't know if I'm talking out my butt there. But in this case, it's all we have for infantry AA. I don't believe Marines have an anti-aircraft Stinger option, so all we have in this deck for that anyway. LDE does an airdrop here. The funny thing is we had to restart this match after 11 minutes or so, And LVE did the exact same airborne drops twice in this, because they worked in the first match, and he just did them again in this match. Like, fuck it, we do it again. They'll never expect me to do that airdrop twice. So you can see him using the Globemasters. I didn't realize until reviewing this match. I think people had talked about it, but I didn't realize it was true even here. That drop was made by a Globemaster, not a C-130. Like, here comes another one. That's like the proper big airborne cargo plane. And they're doing low altitude drops, I think, which is a massive change, because in the November beta, when we all played together, you could only do Globemasters at high altitude. And I think this has changed for the Globemaster, it seems, you can see here. And I think it's also changed, I remember hearing for the Russian cargo planes too, all the cargo planes can do low altitude now, like the AN-72 I believe it's called. Whichever one it was that couldn't before. Which is a big difference. If true, I'm pretty sure my eyes don't deceive me here. That's low out, right? That looks like low out to me. That's a massive change for survivability to actually make these Globemasters be useful. And I can see myself taking them, which is cool. Whereas before I just took the C-130s because they were a lot safer, and the Globemasters were kind of like a one-way trip. Or not even a one-way trip, they wouldn't even get there. Anyway, definitely a thing I want to play with more in airborne is using actual airborne cargo drops again on release. Looks good. Okay, so I've got my line of Javelin Strikers here. I don't know what those fucking things are. Once again, Russian shitboxes. They have like 50 different types of shitty 50-point Russian shitboxes. I can't remember the names for all of them. PTO 76, paid time off. I don't know. They're just fucking shitboxes, okay? They have a cord if they're lucky on them. And they're just pieces of shit. So we're going to drive up. I think that was a mistake. I think I should have stayed, in hindsight, with my Strikers at longer range in the distant tree line, rather than moving up through the trench to get closer. I don't know why I'm engaging at closer range. I guess I wanted to... I guess I was just, confident. Just like, fuck it, let's just ride in. Strikers are this little Mad Max gang of bullies. The fact that they can combine the Javelin, the premier Javelin launcher, along with the trophy systems on all of them for a reasonable cost. I think it's like one... Don't get me wrong, we'll check when the unit list comes up on the top left again with them. But I think it's only 115 for a Striker trophy with Javelin and Grenade Launcher. Which is crazy. Crazy good cost. I don't know, like, you can get similar, I guess, to the Bradleys, but with APS, but the Bradleys can't fire on the move. The big thing that makes Strikers good, well, no, one of the big things, is one, okay, you've got less armor on the Bradley, but you can fire on the move with the Javelin. The Javelin is also is more resistant to smoke. It won't tend to get fooled by smoke unless you actually move once you pop the smoke, which is a big improvement. Makes auto smoke not really a defense. Yeah, can fire on the move, and then they're also a transport, which is great for combined arms. Okay, Bradleys are also a transport, but then they have 6 seats, whereas Strikers have 9. So also very cool. And they are faster. They're not as fast if their extra armor and stuff is on, but they're still that little bit faster than the Bradley as well on roads. So they're pretty cool units. I get another kill, another Russian shitbox there. I brought in some Stryker self-propelled howitzers as well, SBH in the back there. And all I've really done here... Oh, that was a nice bit of recon for a second. Trying to hit some of their AA there. All I've really done here is just let my AA troopers out in the buildings to provide a light defense of the E point and a fallback point if the enemy brings helicopters or something. And then I'm just kind of like Mad Maxing forward, light cavalrying, horsing, let's just call it horsing forward of the Strikers. Yeah, just doing little light cav things, just going forward, coming back now. I took a few hits and I'm out of ammo on a lot of the Javelins, so it's time to fall back and get resupplied. Russians push a tank after us. They push helicopters after us as well. We have an AA Striker here. And notice something very strange happens if you've played against Russia before in the last beta. You'll notice that they had brought a blob of helicopters against us and we didn't die. Very strange, isn't it? And that's because Strikers all have APS, including the AA. Stryker is the only spec that can bring an APS with an AA unit, which is amazing. It's like the only unit that can go toe-to-toe with helicopters and not die instantly through an ATGM. You might ask why I'm doing this. When I was streaming this, I streamed this live, someone in my chat was like, oh, please use the King Stallion. It's like, Sea Stallion, it's the coolest helicopter in the world. It's my favorite helicopter. I was like, okay, instead of an Osprey, I'll bring in a King Stallion drop. They were like, rah, King Stallion, as soon as it was on the screen. So I had to go, like, watch it coming in. They're like the world's #1 King Stallion, Sea Stallion, Super Stallion fan. So you had to do it to him, had to bring it in. Stallion is great. It is a really good, biggest lift helicopter on the US specializations across all of them in the game, I believe. Bigger than the Chinook. I believe Chinook is 12,000 kilos, while the Stallion, the King Stallion, is like 16,000, 16,500. That extra bit helps a lot when you're bringing vehicles plus infantry and supplies at the same time. It is a really good advantage to have over the Chinook, in my opinion. Though the Chinook's a bit cheaper. Chinook's fine, does a good job, but sometimes it can be a little hard to fit things in, whereas the Stallion will have no problem. Keeping our artillery going here, using our Stryker self-propelled howitzers. Getting our other Strykers resupplied. Using the helicopters, the Ospreys, and the beautiful Stallion there to bring in more supply drops, and then we're getting our labs resupplied as well to go with the group. So while I get a moment here that isn't just talking about what's happening on the screen, I want to think about strategy. As I was like, sorry, this was fan service again for the King Stallion fan, where I was like, look, there it goes! I think I popped flares. Yeah. Here's a little air show for our King Stallion fans at home there in the chat going like, oh, King Stallion! King Stallion mentioned. Anyway, I was saying at the start of this video that I've been thinking a lot about this game. Not just what I say on the review here of all of you, but also a lot more afterwards. I've been writing things in my Broken Arrow journal, planning, brainstorming, thinking. And I've been trying to think about more than just, and excuse me if I don't talk about what happens on the screen for a little bit here, but I've been trying to think about more than just the micro actions, like the lizard brain, instinctual things happening on screen, reactive play that I've been doing, and the smaller mistakes I've been doing. I've been trying to think bigger. Because the way I see it, if you just try to correct each mistake as it pops up in your play, even in a review like this, it's kind of like, you know, trying to just plug the leaks in your leaky boat. Like, you have, like, 50 leaks, and you have, like, 10 plugs, and you're just using your hands, and you just, every time you plug a new leak, the other one, you have to take your hand off, will start springing again. I'm kind of like that with mistakes, right? If I just, you know, I did that wrong, don't do that next time, I did that wrong, don't do that next time, over and over, I will maybe remember to not make the same mistake A, but then I'll forget about mistake B, and then next time I'll be like, oh, don't make mistake B, but now I forgot about mistake A. There's only so much room in my head to think about so much at once. And I think the thing about Broken Arrow is that it's probably a bit stupid to approach it like, I just won't do that next time. Because the fact is, there is so much going on in this game. There's so much to consider, not just with the combined arms force composition, but just in general. There's so much you can do wrong. And there's just so much to keep in your head at once that I think it pushes, at least with my brain, the limits of my head of what I'm able to keep in there. So I've been thinking in a wider lens. I've been trying to think in a bigger picture. Basically trying to break down the successes and failures I make into bigger building blocks, so that I can more easily remember them. So rather than going like, oh, I shouldn't do that with this unit here in this situation, I've been more trying to think, what is like a good... How can I split up the game foundationally and fundamentally into big Lego blocks, or Duplo blocks, I guess? Bigger child-friendly blocks. And also, like, how can I make some procedures that I can always remember that are, you know, simple enough that I can remember them as a list of things to do, but are broad enough in scope that they cover everything. So there's two things I've been thinking about. We're just doing a bit of probing here with the Strykers. We're bringing in our delivery trucks to resupply down in the safety of the trench in the lower elevation, out of line of sight. And then we're going to resupply and go back up there again and probe G again. So while that's happening, let me go on. So, for example, something I've been thinking about is how do you break up Broken Arrow into everything? Everything that Broken Arrow is. Every place that you could have something go wrong or go right. I have a little battle on D. Watch this while I yap. So, I've been thinking of in terms of... I just kind of want to watch this fight. Hang on. Let me just watch what happens here. More shitboxes. They've got autocannons. Fuck you. Javelins go off. We have to smoke one of them because APS is countered by just shooting it with a gun. Cannons and autocannons don't give a shit about APS, so doesn't matter if you have APS if you have light armor. It's alright though, because we just use smoke smartly, protect the wounded one, and then kill the rest. Anyway. How do you break up the game? So I've come up with basically something I can remember in the heat of a battle very easily, which is, what is it? It's SCPM. I remember it by going StarCraft Private Message. It is strategy, composition, procedure, micro. And I believe, this is where it's great to tell you about it, you can tell me if there's anything I'm missing or if it's wrong. I believe you can kind of split the whole game into those four areas, right? Strategy is, what are we actually going to do? For instance, strategy might be, I'm going to probe the G point with Strikers right now, and kind of grind my way into the point using these light strike or cavalry tactics, okay? So then there's composition, C, that's your force. That is, what are you bringing, not even what are you bringing in your deck, but what are you deploying, which is necessitated by what your deck is, but what are you deploying to accomplish your strategy? Originally when I came up with this, I had it the other way around. It was CSPM, composition strategy, because I try to do it in order. It's like, what do you do first to build a plan? Well, you know, your composition is your deck. That starts at deck building, so that's before the match. But that's wrong, I realized. You can't pick your composition effectively in this game, or you shouldn't, without deciding your strategy first, because you're going to pick different units in the match based on what strategy you want to do. So it has to be the other way around. So you do strategy first, you pick your strat, and you composition. Alright, so to accomplish that on G, I want to do light cavalry harassing on G, or whatever I said. Hypothetical. Alright, I better bring some light cavalry units, some strikers, for instance, in this case. Alright, I deploy them. I need to bring AA, I need to bring supplies, I need to bring maybe some infantry. Da-da-da-da-da, I bring some artillery behind me. That's my composition. Then we have procedure. What is procedure? Procedure is getting down from the strategy we talked about earlier. Is that my bombing run? Oh, there's a B-52 coming in, watch this. And getting down to tactics. So strategy is the wider level of, I want you to take the G point. It's what the general says to you when you're the person taking the force in. They say, I want you to do this. Nice, Hornet run, let's go. And then instead, tactics, that lower level, procedure is what I'm calling it here, is how you as the force commander, there getting bullets shot at you and shooting bullets back at the enemy, will decide how are you going to execute that. This is a little bit hot for a moment. Just pause, let's watch this. I want to watch this Viper run. Sorry, F-16C. Still a Viper, but not literally in the game's terms. Nice little bombing run there. I think that's like my Strike Eagle loadouts. Just the same, where it's a combo of HE and cluster. You get a bit less HE and cluster in the F-16s than the Strike Eagle. Of course, it's a smaller plane. Strike Eagle is king of the loadouts. But still enough there to do some work on that combined enemy force, you can see. Enemy's trying to coke push D right at the last minute here. Timing push. We've got the strikers in position in the trench. We stop it. We blunt it. We're good. And yeah, just me trying to give some air support to my friends on the left there. So anyway, SCPM, we get under P, procedure. So that's, I've got my strategy I've decided on. I'm probing G with light cav. I've brought in my force. My force is here. Now the procedure. Procedure is, alright, I will use reconnaissance, a reconnaissance striker to screen for enemies, but I'm mainly going to just be pushing forward and see what I run into. Not saying this is good, this is just an example. Alright, I'm going to do that. This is a fucking aggressive push. Aggressive bombing run from me. And then, okay, I'm going to push forward and, you know, wait until something shoots me. I'm going to shoot it back. And then when I take fire, I'm going to fall back and heal. I'm going to keep doing it till I win. That's my procedures, right? But procedures might be reactive as well. It's like, oh, enemy helicopters show up, I'll fall back. My procedure is I'll fall back and smoke, and I'll rely on my Stryker Shorad, and I'll keep kiting until the helicopters are dead. Procedure, reactive procedure might be enemy brings in a bunch of infantry suddenly. Okay, my procedure is I will fall back and I will review my strategy and wait until I can call in close quarters infantry to kill them, or until I can artillery them. Once the enemy infantry is destroyed or neutralized, I will push in afterwards again. Right, these are the tactics. These are moment-to-moment, smaller scale choices. Note I brought in a couple of tanks here too, a couple of Marine Feps with trophy. And then finally, micro. Micro is the execution. So if tactics are what we want to do moment to moment, micro is how well we can do it. So maybe I want to do all that shit I just talked about in procedure. Woo! By Lavels and Shorad. Oof, little swan dive on me there. Micro is, okay, maybe I just didn't click fast enough. Maybe I clicked in the wrong place. Maybe I forgot and just kind of fucked up. Maybe I left my AA behind, for instance, and, you know, that's just the execution. The micro is the execution. You can want to do all the right things, but if you don't actually click the right way, you can't execute your will properly. SCPM, strategy, composition, procedure, micro. That is, I think, you can look at anything that happens and in review go, okay, you know, I failed at one of these points if it didn't work for me. Maybe you just got outplayed. Oh, or sorry, maybe you just got like outplayed or something, but you know, that's where you're going to look at your points of failure, and in reverse your points of success. So what's going on here back in the match, for instance? Well, I'm not really playing with a lot of strategy in these matches. I haven't for the whole time, because all of these matches we've been reviewing, these presser matches, I've really just been struggling to... Oh, here comes a big airdrop, holy shit. Glowmaster Gaming! Okay, it's not that big, it's just a few airborne coming to help me as I push C point. But all these matches, I've basically just been, you know... It's kind of like my first time again. These 3 nights of matches have been me getting back into the game again and trying to play it again. And so I've just been struggling to play. I've just been struggling to, like, click properly and, like, not forget my artillery and AA and units all idle all the time, right? And I haven't really been even feeling like I had the mental capacity to be playing at a higher level where I think about strategy. I think it's very noticeable in hindsight when you look at these matches how much I'm not thinking about strategy. Love that M1A1 FEP killing the helicopter there. But, like, I'm kind of just pushing forward. I'm not really, like, thinking smart. Like, even though I've taken the G point now, and we're looking very good right now, we've kind of just made a breakthrough. We've kind of just not even a breakthrough. We just kind of, like, melted the entire Russian line. We've taken all the zones, right? Looking great for us. But I wouldn't say that I've done a great job to get here. I've basically just meandered forward with my strikers. Okay, maybe I've done, like, some decent micro on the level of using breaking line of sight, and keeping my units alive, using the trench to resupply, da-da-da-da-da. But that's just like a micro-level thing. I haven't really been very smart strategically. Smarter strategically would have been, for instance, when I first engaged with the Strikers, like I said, staying at long range in the tree line. Maybe moving so I don't get bombed, but not closing in where I didn't need to yet. Probably would have been a sounder strategy. Strategy might have been going... Rather than even pushing with the Strikers at all in a direct engagement, why don't I just send some recon units forward, probe what the enemy has without the enemy seeing me, and then just hit them with my Striker artillery? Strategy might be going, why am I even deploying an expensive rollout of direct fighting units in Phase 1 when the points aren't really worth that much? Why don't I take advantage of the game's snowball and economy system, because you get taxed the more you have on the field? So why don't I start off very light, only bring in a few cheap recon units and, like, a few very cheap, like, infantry units to hold my G point in case the enemy pushes, or my E point, sorry. And then I'll just use artillery to punish the enemy for being defensive for the rest of the match. You know, these are things I could have chosen strategically, and they're not really what I'm thinking about here. I'm just too busy trying to keep my head above water. Treading water, let's call it for shorthand from now on. I'm just too busy trying not to drown. But it's something very important to think about here, is I'm really... If you can split the whole game up into SCPM, I'm not doing any S in any of these matches, really. I'm only doing the strategies that maybe I've learned work before in the November beta, my last experience with this game. But I'm not really being very strategic beyond that, and that's a big flaw of mine in a lot of these matches. It's why I keep making the same silly mistakes, and in hindsight, when you're watching this calmly, it's very easy to go, why the fuck are you doing that? That's so stupid, like, what a dumb decision. Nice little bombing run there. Don't know if it killed them, but it would have hurt them. But in the middle of the match, when you're treading water, like, it's very easy when you're watching someone drown in Minecraft, hypothetically. Otherwise, this example is fucked up. But it's very, hypothetically, it's very easy to, like, watch someone drown metaphorically and be like, you shouldn't do that, you should swim. It's very easy to do that. It's like, okay, stop panicking, calm down, just swim. When you're the person drowning, very difficult. Not so simple, easier said than done. And that's the thing, is... That's why it's so useful to review your own play like this, for me to review my own play, is because it's very easy for me to now be both people. I'm both watching myself drown in these matches, and now I'm the person on the shore going, shouldn't do that, that was silly. And that's why I want to break things down into these easy... Whoa, supply dump gets hit there. Easy ways to remember things like SCPM, because it's a way to actually try and deal with my deficiencies in game, and go, I will feel like I'm drowning again, but this time when I'm floundering, nicer way to say it, when I'm floundering, I can go, okay, SCPM, let's go back to the start, let's evaluate what I'm doing here, let's have a plan, let's have a procedure. That FEP's in trouble there because, again, autocannon there doesn't care about the laser protection. Ah, laser, sorry, not laser! I'm sorry again, my APS friend. Because autocannon doesn't care about the APS there. Tank's in a little bit of trouble. That autocannon's nice at close quarters. Got to stay away from close quarters barbarisses. So it's useful to me. I've been thinking a lot about stuff like that. I have another one I'll talk about later if we have time, but I've already spent a lot of time this review talking about such heady theoretical concepts. We'll probably do some more videos to talk about them before release if I have time that are just on their own theory. For now, this is about the time in the match where I'd like to start watching what's happening here, and we can even think of it in terms of what I was just talking about, of strategy, composition, procedure, micro. Right now, we are in kind of a micro moment, right? It's all about this little battle here. We're trying to rescue this FEP, this trophy, Abrams, from the G point, because we pushed in, we got the G point, it's all very cool and neat and fun. But before we actually get to score any points from that, we're now being forced back. Because strategically, this wasn't really a strategic move from me to take the G point. This is kind of just me going, oh, the G point's kind of open, I can go take it. And we might see the wages of sin here of overextending. I still haven't got that FEP on the right out, it's on 1 HP, it's going to get hit. The Russians are springing back against us now. A match that has felt very easy, this felt very easy up until this point for me, suddenly gets real. Because the enemy have done something that is strategically smart. They have not fought tooth and nail for these points that I walked forward and took effortlessly. They have taken their time to breathe, gather supplies again, like gather money again, regroup themselves. They've allowed us to push forward and overextend, which puts our units into an easier to hit position. And now what are they doing? All across the line, they are pushing forward. Missed on that strike. Very powerfully and aggressively and overwhelmingly all at once. Long shot AA catches my F-16 on the way out there. And you can see they're now sweeping back. So they didn't waste their time trickling their units in to take their points back. They waited, they bided their time. They allowed us to make the mistake of overextending ourselves and getting to try it a little bit. Now they're coming strong. Look at this. They've got... Beaglerush is coming at close quarters, so they're going to eat my trophy up. They're going to eat my FEP up, because at that close range, your autocannon's faster firing, will penetrate fine, will do much better. I've got strikers in the trench who are going to get mauled at melee range. Trucks blowing up. Trophy FEP there is all fucked up in malfunctions, can barely fight, it's a dead tank walking. Dead tank treading. And just like that, they've made this big, aggressive push forward that has struck... You know, without us seeing coming. We don't have any, like, recon ahead of where we were to see them coming. Punishes us for being overextended. I'm in reverse the whole way there, and they eventually catch up with me and kill me. And what have I got here now? I've got AA troopers. My teammate has Javelin troopers, but they're out of ammo already. Their Javelins have been crashing against the APS of the Beaglerushes there, I think, is what happened. And all of a sudden, yo, I'm bringing in an Osprey drop. Look out, you know, we're in range of the Beaglerus autocannons at this point. What was previously a safe point to bring in supplies is now not safe at all. And my G point, my E point is under threat here. D point's all gone. They've taken that. They've scored really well on destruction score. Look at the destruction score difference. I don't know how much of that was from what they just did in the last 3 minutes, or if they've been grinding up the whole phase. But look at the difference in destruction score, just quietly. We're not winning anymore. We looked so dominant because we had all the points. Very easy to get lulled into that sense of security. But we have a destruction score deficit that we are never going to make up in this phase. It's not like territory where you can just be like, oh, I'll just take the points back and know I'm winning. No, you've got to make up, like... You can't just flip back to the destruction score here like it's a King of the Hill zone. That is like 6,000 score ahead of us. 5,000, 6,000 score ahead of us. That's crazy, right? They are so ahead on destruction. And it's like 4 minutes till the phase ends. This is like a big wake-up moment to go, oh shit, we're losing. It's really well executed from them. They weren't panicked. They weren't stressed. They took their time. It's a great strategy, right? They came in when they were ready. And they came in hard, rather than, you know, coming in little trickles of units that are easily taken out on their own. Where they're evenly matched by my forces. They came in hard, and it's working great. Now... as a reaction, let's analyze a bit more strategically. What am I doing? I just called in some HIMARS, rocket artillery at the rear. This is basically my counter here at this point, right? Is I'm going, I'll call in HIMARS to what just happened. I don't remember everything that happens in this match, but I think that might be immediately, if you look at this strategically with a bit of experience, a mistake. Artillery is very, very strong in this game. But I think what artillery is strong at is punishing static units. You can get around hitting units on the move a bit with laser-guided munitions, a bit, but still, especially with slower aiming units like howitzers and rocket artillery, it's still difficult to hit units that are on the move. Now, we're hitting infantry here, that's fine. Infantry are like almost never on the move. Like, they can be moving, but they're very easy to predict, you know? Like, They're just very slow, even when they're trying to escape artillery. So it's kind of fine there. But in general, the enemy has a lot of vehicles that if those vehicles just push forward at me right now, I would have a hard time hitting them with rocket arty. you know, unless they sit still. So I think the rocket arty is a little bit of a mistake. It's kind of me going like, oh man, like I can't just bring in ground units now because they've bodied me in the ground unit department. I better fight asymmetrically and bring in artillery. What's the most devastating artillery I have? Rocket artillery. Especially because my rocket arties are my cluster arty, so that's my anti-vehicle arty. We might get a hit on that armada there. Like, we will get targets, but definitely if the enemy had just kept sweeping forward of their mechanized force, I've got nothing to stop it, because my HIMARS just isn't going to be able to stop that. I need to bring in ground units to stop that. A better move might have been to bring in a sudden emergency force of anti-tank infantry. Cheap enough that I can bring in a ton of it. Can you get that armada? Oh, it's like just surviving. Cheap enough I can bring in a ton of it, and I can bring it in helicopters quickly to reinforce my E point. Because if they had just gone for it, I think they take it easy. I've got nothing there. They're trying to hit my HIMARS. I don't see a HIMARS destroyed marker, so I think I shoot and scooted them effectively. You can see also the enemy, like we clearly don't have enough AA active because I think they just flew a jet right over our backline to get that HIMARS, which is crazy. They've also pushed in and taken the F point of a little lighter mechanized force of BMPs or Sprats, whatever those are. They fall back out of the way. Airstrikes are a little... Don't you one-shot me. Nice. Airstrikes are a little easier to correct for mobility, but these days, also they are a little bit hard to like correct for moving units. Airstrikes are better at hitting mobile enemy forces, but better than artillery, but still, at a certain point, if you stay mobile enough and dodge enough like you saw there, there really isn't a good, cost-effective substitute for having actual units in the fight. This game's all about moving. It's not about sitting still and defending static trenches. It's about maneuver warfare. Artillery and air support is very powerful, has its place, especially if you can predict properly, if you can skill shot with the airstrikes. But at a certain point, well played against enough each other, it's got to come down to ground units, right? To stop an enemy that's aggressing on you. I think that's why what we talked about before, the idea of playing light on the ground in Phase 1 works if you allow the enemy to take the point, because if they dig in, I think worse players, like newer players, will do it a lot. I do it a lot. If you allow someone to dig into an area, or like take a zone, they'll be like, oh yeah, I should dig in, I should like put infantry in buildings, I should get ready for the enemy's counterattack. If they're just going to sit still like that, that lets you just go, I will scout you with snipers you never see, and I will bomb all your units that are sitting still, because units that are sitting still are vulnerable to artillery and fire support. In this case, the enemy is making massive gains this phase. They're going to get 8 points. But they're kind of staying on the move. Like, they neutraled out the F point, and they actually got out of there before I could airstrike. They never came back. Like, there's being effective here to not just get whacked. But you can see, because it's faster to call in an airstrike or redirect an airstrike than it is to have an artillery salvo prepped in an area. You can see there I was able to, like, skill shot, predict where the enemy's going to be, get a nice strike off there of the Viper. Anyway, so now we're entering Phase 3, and what was at first a 1-1 neutral out in points and was during Phase 2 starting to look really dominant for us, we're in so much trouble now. We are down 8 points, 1 to their 9. And it's not like we've got massive wins on their armed forces anytime recently, I don't think. Like, what are we going to do? Like, they're stronger than us on the ground right now. And we've really allowed ourselves to get into a terrible position without realizing that. I have to give massive props to the Russian team for the knockout punch that was delivered there in Phase 2. It was so well done. It was synchronized. It was powerful. It was well done. It was just great. It's what you want to do. It's so well done. I think it's great the way this game works with the 3 phases where you don't need to hold a territory till the end of the phase, and the way the destruction score kind of ticks up and down is this game is a lot about timing. There's a new YouTuber called Lima Broken Arrow, who I've been talking to. I'm probably going to play with on release and do some talking with. And he's I believe he's like an officer in the British Army, or something like that. And I liked watching his videos. He hasn't done many yet, but he's doing more because he thinks very strategically. And one of the things he was saying, an insight that was really well put, is that Broken Arrow is a lot about that timing and pacing, and there's a nice progression flow to the matches. Because it's not just you have to hold the points at all times to tick victory points every second like every other RTS game, but there is like a timing. You don't have to just mindlessly meat grinder your units to the point forever, because every 5 minutes, you know, you don't get the back on the point. It's another 5 minutes of victory points ticked away from you. You do have the room, whether you treat each phase as a individual battle to be won, or whether you treat the whole 45-minute match as a battle to be won, because points are worth more at the last phase anyway. you have the time to decide when am I going to be strong, when am I going to fall back and regroup for a bit. And that's kind of what they did here. I love that about the game. It's one of the many things I love about this mode in this game. It's terrific. I will link Lima in my description. Go check him out. He's just starting up, and he's really he's one to watch. I think he's very insightful, and I like his production value. Little plug for him. Go check him out. Anyway, we have to look at what we can do here now. Now, I don't remember everything I do, but we can see what I think we should do and what I do actually in the end do. Let's look at what I am doing first, because that's on the screen. What I am doing is fire support. All I'm really doing here is... And I'm just tunneling on my own... Well, no, I'm not tunneling on my own. I am trying to help my allies out on the right of fire support. Actually, that's not fair to me in this case. Not just tunneling on my own problems, but in fact, I'm not really tunneling on my own problems enough. I'm not thinking about my own part of the line enough here. Because I'm just spamming fire support. I'm going... I guess I'm trying to even up the destruction score. I don't know what was going through my head at this point to react the way I did. Maybe I was just, like, scared. I don't know. But all I'm really doing is using constant airstrikes to try and stop all their blobs of enemy units. I'm trying to use the HIMARS, I'm trying to use my howitzers, and I'm just doing artillery spam. But I think in hindsight, it's the worst place for me to be doing this, because the enemy is... We don't have good recon, so we can't really see a lot of their static units, which would be vulnerable to this. And the bigger threats of the enemy is a lot of, like, mobile forces. And you can see here, this is exactly what we talked about before, they're just attacking. What have I done? I've got nothing holding the E point. I'm, like, very, like, taking for granted my control of the E point here. I'm focusing on everything but what if they come for me next, really. Because I have nothing on the ground to stop this. In the end, I think I just brought in some attack helicopters, because that is, I think, the right answer here. The enemy is overextended. You don't see a lot of AA in their force. When the enemy pushes, when they bulge into your line like this and make a breakthrough, bring in attack helicopters. Use attack helicopters with ATGMs and FFARs. Melt the force. If the enemy does not have SHORAD right there, you win, you destroy it. If the enemy does have SHORAD, you try and kill it first with an overwhelming amount of attack helicopters, or you prep it with an airstrike or something. You know, bring in like a Maverick plane and kill these SHORAD, then bring in helicopters, and you try to mop it all up. An enemy force has pushed forward like this is scary, but they are also very overextended by design. They've extended beyond their lines. They're in your territory. You have home advantage. That's where your helicopter's going to shine. Got to get out of there, though, because that Tunguska over by the G point, it's got quite a long range. Viper gets out of there. Good job, Viper. Helps out with the response there to kill all of that. But it could have been trouble, you know. Here comes boomerangs on the A point. Sorry, just K-15s, I think they're called. No, K-16 boomerangs. Yep, they're coming in on the A point. Need an airstrike here. But I'm still just doing fire support. And part of that is because I'm treading water, right? Again, mentally, during this match, I'm probably still reeling from what happened in Phase 2. I'm still going, fuck, what the fuck do I do? Not familiar with Strikers either, but that's not the biggest problem here. That's a nice strike! You're gonna bring in another one, though, because a cool thing about Broken Arrow is when the transports die... Oh, I lost that F-16C, damn. Cool thing about Broken Arrow is when the transports die, the infantry get off without too much damage in the inside. The armored personnel carriers do their job of protecting the infantry. So the transports kind of do their job there of getting there to the point, and now we need to finish them off, which will be hard. Infantry are harder to finish off here. Hey, that works though for a bunch of them, but there's still some alive. But also, it's like strategy, like the fact that I go, oh, I lost an F-16C there. Of course I did. I haven't done any work to degrade the enemy's AA this match, so of course I'm going to lose units. The enemy AA is doing what it needs to do, and I'm not targeting it. But I'm just too busy, like, being stressed at this point, going like, oh, like, here's a problem, I'll react to it with artillery. Here's a problem, I'll react to it with airstrikes, blah, 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 blah. At no point can you see me in this match go, after things get real, at no point can you see me go, whew, take a breather. What's going on here? Like, I need to do something more. I need to, you know, I've got a bunch of supplies right now. I got 1,200 supplies. I need to bring in a force. And I think I will bring in a force here, but probably too late. If I have, you can see me right now looking at it, but I'd say it's a little bit too late. I should have done this like 2 minutes earlier at least. If not 3 or 4 or 5, or even in Phase 2. But I'm thinking about taking back the points. I'm looking at the score and I'm going, okay, we're a bit fucked, but the only way we're going to win this match back is if we can flip F and D. So I think that's what I'm bringing a force in for now, as well as to just help out my teammates in general. But So we are bringing it in, but I think you can look at what I did for the last 10 minutes of all the artillery and all that and just go, that was wrong. That didn't do enough. I think the airstrikes has been some good airstrikes, but airstrikes are like an add-on. It's not like you have to go airstrikes. The jet is here, it does its job, and it either dies or leaves. You're just doing that like a little sideshow. It's a mini game. The problem is I brought in this artillery, kept it on the ground, and that was kind of my commitment to actual units for a while. But they're not frontline combat units. The artillery has not been getting enough value. The airstrikes have been doing fine, but I could have been doing ground forces while also doing airstrikes whenever, because it doesn't distract you for that long. The point is, you have enough attention that you can spare for a second, 20 seconds to do an airstrike, and then go back to what you're doing with the ground forces. Unfortunately, what you're seeing here is I'm doing some effective airstrikes, but then I'm really not doing anything in the middle. I'm just kind of... like, I'm looking for places to use my artillery, but we don't have recon out on the ground. I don't have recon out in front of my point, and so I'm not getting good targeting info to use this artillery effectively. Drone there is good. Drone is also good. I don't know if I had a drone in this deck. No, I wouldn't have in Stryker. I would have had the low flying ones, but I don't think I put it in the deck. But drone is a good way to quickly resolve, like, band-aid a lack of recon on the front line. Just go, oh, fuck it, drone. Let's see. Drone probably dies, but you will get vision. It's kind of like a scanner sweep from StarCraft. You're paying, like, whatever the cost of the drone is to see things for a little bit, right? Is how you can use them a bit more recklessly. But yeah, this is a good example of a match where I should have looked at, like, let's look at it now, or maybe we have time. SCPM, right? Like, what should I have been doing for the past 10, 20 minutes instead? Recon. I think when I got wiped on the ground, it's too long ago, I can't remember the first half as well now, but let's talk about the second half of the match. When I got wiped on the ground, my own mistakes led me there, that is a point where, rather than going, oh, I can't contest him on the ground for a while because I just got bodied, I'm at like a supply deficit, let's go artillery. Maybe I should still go artillery, but what I should have done is brought in a bunch of recon. I think I should have brought in like half a dozen recon infantry units, because this map is pretty close, it's pretty close quarters. Maybe not in terms of the sight lines, but like it's pretty squashed together. You could easily have landed like half a dozen infantry units with helicopters on my E point, or you could have brought them in with jeeps and waited another minute. But you easily, I think, could have brought them into that trench and started creeping them forward, spotted everything the enemy had that was sitting still in front of their G point, and near the F point we're looking at right now. And it started hitting the static units of artillery, not just the mobile ones that we see pushing us. And that would have been fine. We could have started doing a bit of evening up destruction score, degrading the enemy's army. And then maybe we do that for the rest of Phase 2. Whoo! Lucky we didn't get hit by more there by that bomb. Maybe we do that for the rest of Phase 2, and then when Phase 3 ticks over, we go, okay, we've saved enough money, let's try to win on the ground again, let's bring in a ground army. So that's one thing I could have done. And composition-wise, I would have had all the units I need for that. It's not the kind of thing I'd work out in the moment, though I think the thing about SCPM, Strategy, Composition, Procedure, Micro, 3 of those things you can prepare before you get into a match, which lets someone like me actually remember things and do them, right? Your strategies, your compositions, your procedures, which are just your small-scale tactics, that's something I can write in a playbook. And I just have to learn and predict enough situations to be like, okay, when that happened to me, what would I do to it next time? And write it in a book, right? Write it in my notes. Micro, I can practice, but that's always going to be more specific. You can practice general, like, APM, actions per minute, but... or specific tech in your micro, but ultimately that's going to be a bit of... that's game time. You're going to do that at the time. But everything else can be prepped, and then you just got to execute it right with your micro. But if I wanted to get back on the ground in Phase 2... I mean, I probably would have looked somewhere else to go. I probably would have brought in some more defensive units to hold my E point just in case. And I could have looked around and zoomed out and looked at the world and thought, which one of my allies' sides could benefit from me trying to break through it right now? Or to counter swing. Because if we look at what's strong and what's weak, in terms of what we could have done from that point, like we said, if the enemy overpushes, they've overextended. If they get across the trench, they've overextended into our lines, and now we can punish them with helicopters very cost effectively. So rather than trying to hold the enemy at E point, smarter way have been to like to be really big brain, to be optimal, might have been go, okay, if they take the E point, that's fine. I know I'll call in helicopters, that's my counter for that. Meanwhile, I will be aggressive and maneuver warfare-y and active somewhere else rather than reactive and waiting for them to come to me like a scaredy cat. So that's something I could have thought of strategically as well. Someone said it in the comments, they gave the advice of like, when you're feeling pressured in this game, you're getting tunnel vision, you don't know what, you're like, oh, everything's too much. Try zooming out. Because these fights feel like life or death at close quarters when it's like one infantry squad versus another infantry squad, and you're like, oh, my airborne unit is dying. But if you zoom out, that's the cheat code to go, the world is bigger than me. The world is bigger than one unit dying. And what's more important sometimes, as the strikers come in and eat up all that infantry on F, sometimes it's more important to let a couple of units die that you probably couldn't save anyway, take a minute, and think strategically, because this is a match where I don't know if we could have salvaged it after how badly I had my part in us getting turned around on in the mid-game. But if I could have, it would have come from taking a minute and thinking more strategically. It's a bit like when I play the game Mechabellum. You want to have the initiative. It's incredibly important in this game to have the initiative. You want to be the one who is causing problems for the enemy. You do not want to be the one who is reacting to your enemy, because when you're causing problems for the enemy, when you have the initiative, you are deciding what happens, you know what happens, so you're not surprised. You are choosing things to happen that are favorable for you, is the idea. If you're just reacting to the enemy, even if you react to the enemy perfectly, you are still reacting, you are still dancing to the enemy's tune, you are still waiting for the next surprise, and it's harder for you to stop and think because you're thinking... You have to think in the moment, how do I react to this? Reaction time. If you're doing things to the enemy, if you're the one causing problems for them, then you have time to think, because you're going, okay, I'm going to go do this to them, and da-da-da, I can think about other stuff, because I already know what's happening, you know? I don't have to, like, go, oh shit, tanks on my flank, what do I do? It's incredibly important for so many reasons to keep the initiative in this game. It's easy to say, but I realized in games like Mechabellum, you could literally, like, get a game sense for who's winning based on who has the initiative, who is making moves and who is reacting to the moves. And I think it's the same with Broken Arrow. You can see who is winning, like, on vibes, basically, by who is setting the tempo of the match and who is just dancing to the tune. And at the end of the day, this is like right here, right in the last 10 seconds. This is really the first move I've made proactively since like the disaster in Phase 2, I'd say, in hindsight. And you can see we do end up taking F and D points in the end. It's very last minute, but it's too little too late. We even it back up, well, we work towards evening it back up at 4 points to 9, but they're still 5 ahead. They just got so ahead in Phase 2, and then I won't speak for my team at large, but I will say, me personally, I was reeling. I was reeling the whole time, I think. And I didn't do enough. I wasn't able to come back and do enough there after that big loss in Phase 2. Now, again, in hindsight, it's so easy to look at that and go, fucking why? Like, what are you doing? Like, do something. It's so easy to look at, like, a review of this. I'm not talking about, like, you guys. I'm not saying, like, oh, don't criticize me. Please criticize me. I deserve it. It's good. It's constructive criticism. It's very valid and you have to do it. But I'm talking about me to myself, me to me. It's very much like I can look at myself in these matches when I'm calm and go, what the fuck am I doing? You know, do something. It's very easy to go, why the fuck am I bringing in HIMARS? And because it's a panic response, or it's not even necessarily panic, it's a strong word, but it's instinctual. It's lizard brain. It's the doctor hits your knee with a hammer and you go, ow, and you move your leg. It's someone pokes Grug with a spear and Grug goes, ugh, and punches that person back. It's a reaction. HIMARS is me going, oh, I'm fucked. Oh, shit. Artillery, you know? This is happening at a instinctual threat reaction level. And that is very normal. I can't completely unlearn that. That is instinctual to me as a human being. But that is why you prepare things in advance. Because when we don't have the time to do this kind of calm review over ourselves, when we're in these matches, there will always be new nuances and details to the situations we're facing. But they will often be similar. Once I've played enough matches of this game, or once you've played enough matches, the situations will start to feel similar. Even though in that match, for instance, I've never specifically had a situation where I was holding the middle of oil refinery and being counterswung by a big elastic defense into a powerful springboard attack on me by an enemy mechanized force with Monoshoki coming out of the trees and da-da-da-da-da. Even though that exact situation hasn't occurred to me before, situations like it have occurred to me enough that I can prepare for it. I can go, let's break that down to simpler blocks. What's the big Duplo block version of that? Cut out all the fat, just go to what is that at its fundaments. That is, I overextended, was punished, wiped, and now the enemy is retorting with a mechanized attack. A strong mechanized attack, heavy mechanized attack. The less words we use there, the better, because the simpler we keep it, we can try and like make a procedure that applies to every situation in that family of situations. So now anytime I am under attack by a large mechanized force, and I have a lot on the ground to stop it, I can go, bam, I've thought about this. I've thought about how to prepare for a situation like this. I'm in my mental playbook. To sum it up, I've trained for this, right? That's like how the fucking, and this game's all about like war game and fake army fighting, video game for army fighting. But to my understanding, that's how the real army works, right? You cannot rely on yourself in a instinctual, under pressure, under threat moment to think and be smart. Your brain constricts, right? Like, your focus constricts. You get literal tunnel vision. You are not seeing the big picture. And you can't just be built different. Maybe you can. I can't. I can't just be built different. I can't just be like, I just won't panic or get tunnel vision next time. I have to think of strategies to get around that. So what you do, what they do in the military, and what we can do with games as well, if you want to get into it, if you want to get sweaty, you prepare and practice everything you're going to do before you have to do it, so that then when you get into this situation, you're not there going, oh, fuck, tanks, what do? You go, tanks, I've fucking drilled this into myself. I've practiced AI and skirmish for exactly this. I've made custom editor scenarios to practice for exactly this moment. In the first second of seeing it happen to you, you're just, it's second nature. You're just going, this is what I do when I get pushed by this many tanks. And what's very interesting about Broken Arrow as a game is there's a lot of depth for a lot of situations. You can probably prepare for everything in broad strokes like that. But there's so much nuance, there's so much room for nuance, there's so much detail, and the units move slow enough that there is always going to be room to tweak your strategy on the fly. Maybe your reaction to being pushed by a heavy mech attack is foundationally the same as you might do in another situation because you prepared it, but once your force actually gets there, that's when you start executing and microing, SCPM. That's when you start doing the M, microing and procedure, doing your tactics, small scale procedures when you get there, out of your toolbox. But there's so much you can prepare for, and it's so interesting. As someone who likes to try hard, as someone who likes to sweat, I really look forward to it. And it's also why I'm impatient at this point to play again. Because I, like you, have to keep watching myself not be prepared. You can see that in these matches where I'm caught off foot, and I don't really know what to do, and I'm just kind of reacting in the moment. I'm thinking through the problem the whole way in the moment. And that is a massive problem. There just isn't time for that if you want to be effective. Especially because when you don't have like the fullness of time to completely think through calmly with no pressure on you all the solutions and weigh them up against each other, it's more likely that I'm just going to pick the first one that seems kind of good to me. In that case, HIMARS seemed good enough. HIMARS good, strong, kill Russians. In hindsight, you can compare it to other things I could have done, and you can go SCPM, okay, strategy-wise, maybe that was wrong because it's not going to protect me from dynamic maneuvering enemy elements. You can go to composition and say my composition was wrong because I was lacking the recon that would have made that strategy of punishing the enemy of artillery asymmetrically work. So composition-wise, I failed. I didn't bring enough recon. I didn't bring any recon. That's a composition failure. Or you could say it's strategic and composition. I didn't even think to bring the recon, perhaps. Composition failure would be like, I brought recon, but I only brought one of them. And it died. And now I don't have any left. Composition failure. I didn't prepare for redundancy for my recon. Procedure was okay at that point, I guess, because it's useful to see a checklist I can go down. I guess procedure is fine because I was just shooting shit when I saw it, but I've already failed at the higher levels. Strategically and composition-wise, I have failed in my reaction. So no matter my procedure in micro, I'm disadvantaged, and it doesn't turn out well anyway, right? I would say my micro was fine. It was okay. My procedures were okay to be working with artillery that had no recon to spot for it. and to just be calling in airstrikes, sure, fine. But I failed at that higher level. And already, you know, I hesitate to come out and say stuff like, it almost makes me feel a little bit like cringe, like embarrassed to be like, guys, I come up with this thing, SCPM, until I've got to test it in a real match. But I share it with you because it's my thought process, because I'm trying to start applying it to these reviews, these last two we have left, and think about it and see, okay, is this useful? Is this a useful framework to look at this game through? And in that moment just then we were talking about, to me it already feels like it is. It's a checklist I can think about. I can go top to bottom. At what level am I failing? And then that allows me to easily analyze everything without missing something, because it's just 4 easy points on a checklist, and go, where did I fuck up? And now I can really quickly get to go, what should I have done better? And you can see it. It's useful. It's useful. I like it. And I say it's like almost embarrassing, because it's like, whenever I get this sweaty or try hard about a game, I love it. I love to think about this stuff. I love to theory craft. I love to think. I love to plan, strategize. Well, part of why I love this game. But always there's going to be that little voice in my head that's like, it's just a fucking game, you nerd. Calm the fuck down. But, you know, that's just normal. That's just human. I think at this point, if you're still here watching these reviews, I don't think you yourself would be here watching these reviews for me over and over again. Like, we're at like 16 now, right? If you also didn't care about getting a little bit deeper into the game. So I imagine I'm amongst good company. Anyway, this was the second last one, and there's only one more after this. The last one. I play Stryker again in the next one. It's on the map River, which is very wide open. I forget if I played Stryker Marines again or Stryker Armored. I think I played Stryker Marines again. I don't think I made a Stryker Armored deck. And yeah, we'll see it play out, and I think now that I've got to talk about the framework which I'm trying to apply to these games now to see if it's useful, we'll be able to like look at the next match through that lens as well. And from the start, I'm going to be going SCPM. All right, what am I doing here? Can we analyze more efficiently through this framework what I was doing wrong, what I could have done better? I look forward to it. And kind of the point of what I was saying before is not just that like being a tryhard, you know, has 1% of me going like, oh, it's just a game, bitch. But also like, what was I going to say? Yeah, the main point was I don't want to like say things like they're useful until I've tested them. So I'm probably going to talk about this more in the next match because I'm trying it out in review. But I won't recommend this as a thing others do until I've played with it for like a week or two in game, right? And then I might make a video being like, hey, this helps me a lot. If you're a new player, you could think of the broken arrow this way. It might help you too. But I'm always trying to be very careful of not talking out my butt. It's very easy. It's very fun to theory craft in this game and others. It's very fun to just have a thought and be like, I've got a thought. It seems good to me. It makes me feel good. And then not actually like... You can like lead people astray. You can be like, oh, this is my new method for broken arrow. This is my new religion for broken arrow. And it's like, have you actually tested it in a match? Does it work? You know, like, I don't know. It probably will. I'm pretty smart. Like, no, don't do that. Like, so disclaimer, you know, I'm yet to really try this out. I came up with it in the last few days, but it's helping me. You can probably tell I'm doing a lot of analysis. I'm trying to prepare myself for when the game comes out because I don't want to be unprepared anymore. When this game comes out, I want to hit the ground running, come out the gate, be prepared. I want to look good. I want to feel good. I have another thing I've thought about as well, we'll probably talk about in the next match, which is more of a if you're under pressure checklist, which I'll briefly just mention here, which is Drain, which is what I'm going for now, which is damage, refit, artillery, idle, next. In short, and that means this is the order if I'm like completely fucking stressed and I don't know what to do. Here's the order of like triaging my priorities. Damage is look for damage units on my side, or sorry, no, danger. Danger is look for danger units in danger on my side, get them out of danger before like these units that are about to die, right? Like they're an imminent threat. Refit is look for units after no one's in danger, look for units that need to be repaired or rearmed, get them out of there, get that done, get them ready. A lot of the time in matches, that's a problem. Artillery stands for is my artillery doing anything? Do I have artillery? Bring it in if not. If it's not doing anything, get it on a mission. Idle is like that, but for everything, it's like, okay, now that we have fire missions going, we have got our units out of danger and they're all refitting and resupplying. Just look for any unit that's idle in general, get it to work, make it be useful for its points. And then finally, next target is when all of that is happening. Now let's look at the enemy. What is the next thing I'm going to kill? I guess you could even think of next objective, right? But it's like, what am I going to do next? Now that I've done all the fundamental micro tasks and chores, let's actually think strategically again, or just, just look for a target and be like, I'm going to kill that. It's close to me. I'm going to artillery it. Now that I think of it, next objective would be better. It's like, now what do I do? Anyway, so we might talk about that more in the next match, but probably not. We'll just focus on the other stuff strategically. I look forward to seeing you for the last one. And then after that, I might try to fit some more Theorycraft specific videos in before release, like how to build your first deck if you're new to the game, and some new player advice that I can give before we get started, because I want you to be ready on day 0 like me. So thanks for being here. I'm leaving. And thanks for your comments as always. They're really helpful. To my fans, thank you so much for supporting me, even when you shouldn't when I make mistakes in this game. And to my haters, you're usually correct. Thank you for criticizing me. It's usually fair. I'm going to see you all in the next match review. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye-bye for now, and have a good one. Can't wait! The game is like 6 days away! Can't wait! See you in the next one. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a good one.